Today I'm going to answer Randy's questions on how long to decant a bottle of wine, and I'm actually going to do as much as I can to cover many different wines and why we decant wines and how long you should be decanting each of the wine. And stay till the end because I'm going to show them all on the whiteboard so you can see it visually. It's going to be very different than just give you a cut and dry answer because that is not how wine works. Wine are a living, breathing thing, so it is different for every single bottle, and it's not as easy as to be like, oh yeah, if it's a cab, decant it for an hour, if it's a Pinot, decant it for 30 seconds or 30 minutes. It doesn't work that way. So let's go back to the beginning on why we decant wine. When we talk about decanting wine, it's for two main reasons. One is we decant for aeration, and second is we decant for settlement. So when we talk about decanting for aeration, we're talking about a wine that's generally something that has either a really big fruit or acid or tannin structure that's really tightly bound up that can use some aeration, so you allow the aromatic and everything get in balance with your atmosphere and allow the molecules to release so you get a better enjoyment out of the wine. That's what decant for aeration is. Or else that flavor is really tight and bound up in the wine and you don't get as much enjoyment. The second reason why we'll decant wine is generally for older bottles of wine that is storing a lot of sediment, that little solid chunky stuff. It might not look as pretty and it might not taste as good, gets a little chewy in your mouth, and that's why we decant to get rid of those sediment. But today we're mostly going to focus on decanting for aeration and how long you will want to spend depending on the varietal. I'm going to go ahead and debust a myth right now. People sometimes think white wine doesn't need to be decanted. I wanted to say now that there are white wine that could benefit from some decanting, but that's not the exercise today, so we can save that for another time. If you are interested to know that more, leave that in the comment and we'll just make that into the next video. But when it comes to red wine, there are just so many different informations out there on how long you should decant them. So we're gonna do it on the whiteboard. Alright, let's talk about Cabernet Sauvignon first, especially when we're talking about domestic Cabernet that's very young and really big, like your classic Napa stuff. Most of those Cabernet, they are actually made to taste really good right off the bat. So this is going to be kind of on the average, and then this is 100% and this is negative. So for most domestic Cabernet, I think for the most part when you open them, they're right here. They start out right above average. If you don't decant it on a young Cabernet, it might take them a while. It literally will look like this. Slowly creeping up through time and eventually plateau and maybe fall. So that's that. And the reason why you wanted to decant the Cabernet is because you wanted to kind of speed up that curve. So if you use a big decanter and you wait and whatever have you, you can maybe make the curve go a little more like this. It'll go faster. It'll get up to the peak and it'll stay to the peak longer and then it drops down. So that's your Cabernet and that's what you wanted to decant. And for the younger Cabernet, let's just say if this is usually about the 1 hour mark, let's just say 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour right here. I think right about the 1 hour mark is usually where Cabernet peaks. But that's not quite the case with a lot of the wine. Next, we're going to talk about different grape varietal that does not behave quite linearly like a Cabernet would. What I mean is, for example, if you're drinking a very old Barolo, when you first open them, it's literally gonna start off at almost negative 100. Every single time I open like a really old Barolo, when I first open them, it feels like, holy crap, this bottle's gone bad. And it will literally stay up here. And you can decant it, and you'll have to decant it. But even with decanting, it will take them literally 2 hours. So it will stay down here, slowly creeping out. You're just like, I cannot believe I wasted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars here. And then after that 2 hour mark, it's gonna poop, and it's gonna shoot up and stay up here. So this is kind of your Barolo. The black line is your Cabernet. So this is your Barolo. So that's very interesting. So it does take time. So for Barolo, you need, for the most part, the older one, at least 2 hours. The younger and more modern style Barolo will drink and behave like the Cabernet curve. But we're talking about the classic old school Barolo winemaker, the ones that doesn't see any new oak, the one that just takes a lot of time in the bottle and in the decanter to air out. That's the curve for Barolo. The next we're gonna go with something that's kind of controversial because some people will do it, some people won't, which is, do you decant a Pinot Noir or do you decant especially a Burgundy? For California Pinot Noir, because California has free range to make Pinot Noir in any style they will like, they can go very old world style and they can go very new world style. that is a whole nother story. But I think it's more controversial when it comes to the Burgundy of the world. A lot of people don't like to decant Burgundy, and some people would, and I understand where it comes from. And I personally would not recommend decanting Burgundy, especially when it has a few years of bottle age on them. We're talking about 10 or more years, just because Burgundy doesn't really behave in any kind of lenient fashion. When you first open a Burgundy, it could start anywhere from below average to above average, but let's just say you start right at average taste. With a 10-year-old Burgundy, without decanting, and with decanting, it will do the same thing. It just has a life of its own. With Burgundy, you can start out right here, and it might go up, and then it's gonna drop down. And it's gonna go up again, and it's gonna drop down. And it's gonna go up, and it can go, it literally will go whatever the heck it is, and it's gonna finally hit a peak, again, depending on the Burgundy, somewhere around, sometimes you can hit it in 1 hour mark in the more modern style, but some of them will take 2 hours to get there to finally open up. But one of the fun things about drinking Burgundy is to feel and see the progression of the development when you're drinking them slowly. And that's one of the reasons why I don't personally like to decant my Burgundy. I like to use a really good Burgundy glass, a big round glass, and just pour and sip slowly, and you can just feel and watch the journey of Burgundy going through the openness and peaking and going down, and just feeling how it continues to change through time. Next, I'm actually going to talk about Zinfandel. For me, Zinfandel is a really big, jammy, sweet wine. So Zinfandel, it starts off pretty much, you know, wherever it is. To me, the Zin stays at a pretty flat line. So if you don't decant it and just drink it on its own, it will stay pretty consistent and flat through the entire duration of you drinking it. I don't like to decant it because it doesn't really normally have a bunch of acid or tannin background that stands that massive aeration. So what happened, in my opinion, when you decant Zinfandel is, you know, you could have got a very beautiful straight line through your entire drinking journey with Zin. If you do decide to decant it, sometimes you're gonna fall into the Zin, then will like peak up really quick, but then it's gonna drop all the way down and you lose it really quickly. And that is kind of the same idea with an older Bordeaux or older California Cabernet. When you're talking about older wine, and when I say older wine, I'm not talking about 10 years old, I'm talking about 20, 25 or even older wines, you might want to be really careful on decanting it, because at this point we're decanting more for settlement, not to try to open it up any more than it needs to. It doesn't really need that much air. So when we're talking about wines that's older than 20 years old, California Cabernet, Bordeaux, and whatever, sometimes I'll recommend, unless it's really good condition from really good vintage, you get it directly from winery, sometimes I'll recommend not even decanting it. Again, because it might behave more like a Burgundy and go up and down, so you can watch the entire journey unfold. But if it is a really good vintage, for example, if you just open in 1990 Bordeaux, direct from the winery, the condition is perfect, you can absolutely still decant it. But I would recommend it would take less time. So it's probably going to start somewhere up here, and it's going to go up fairly quickly within half an hour, and it will stay up there for maybe an hour and a half, and it will slowly decline through time. So you just have to understand where and when the wine peaks. So for older California Cabernet and older Bordeaux, it's going to peak earlier. So don't decant it aggressively. You can decant it a little bit, but just start tasting it sooner. Whereas in, like I said, a younger California Cabernet, if you don't decant it, it might take it 2 hours before you get to a good spot. So yeah, sure, decant it and leave it, decant it early, but you definitely do not want to do that with things like an older Bordeaux, an older California Cabernet, or things like Zinfandel. With that being said, these are some of the pattern I see with different red wine when it comes to decanting with my 17 years of experience. So I hope this helped. I don't want it to just give you a cut and dry, like how many minutes or how long to decant it. Again, your condition of the wine, condition of the climate which you're drinking the wine, how big of a decanter you're using, and how aggressive you're decanting the wine can also change the outcome. But these are some of the things to be expected with some of the most common red grape that you might think of decanting. So I hope you enjoyed this information. If you enjoy drinking wine, learning about the wine to drink, don't forget to subscribe to my mailing list at angiesong.com so you'll get updates on all the videos just like this one, and you will not miss out on any of the amazing wine deals I have to offer down the line. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.